Well, it's a very big welcome to you all wherever you are dialing in today, this evening, or this afternoon to our webinar, whether you're listening live or on your favorite podcast or streaming services. Welcome to the Coaching Cafe. My name's Natalie Ashdown. I'm here with our resident HR specialist, Paula Jones Hunt. Say hi, Paula.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're talking about you can't coach everyone and maintaining the distinctions between coaching and other services that we might offer. So before we begin, let me acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands of which we're all meeting today or listening today, and their continuing connections to the land, waters, communities of Australia, and the lands from all around the world, wherever you might be joining us today. We pay our respects to them, to elders past, present, and emerging, and elders from Indigenous communities from all around the world. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to follow on our theme around demonstrating ethical practice and the ICF Core Competencies. So for those of you that are renewing your credential, as a minimum, you do need 2 learning opportunities around ethical practice. Last week we gave you one. This week we're giving you another, and I think we're following up again next week with one as well. So today we're thinking about when are we coaching and when are we referring to other services. For those of you that are new, welcome. We're about creating a coaching community, sharing learned experience, having thought-provoking conversations. But I can see from the people that we have joining us live today, you're regulars. Welcome back. It's great to be here with you. We really appreciate you joining us because it expands our professional development and your professional development together. Everybody's been telling us where they've been dialing in from. Welcome, Yasmin, you're new, from Wellington, Canberra, Melbourne, Chicago, London, Brisbane, China, Thailand. The list goes on. So welcome, New York City's represented. Excellent. So wherever you're dialing in from, we're here together to share this knowledge together, have thought-provoking conversations. And of course, most of you are collecting your ICF CCEs, which are available at the end of the session. Oh, yes, you can get hold of past training sessions that we've had. You can find them on our blog, opendoorcoaching.com.au. So just go to our blog. You can see all the blogs lined up there, all of the different sessions, and you can get our past webinars. If you want to know where the ones that are coming up, just go to where you've registered for this webinar on our website as well, opendoorcoaching.com.au. And yes, we hold these sessions weekly, also on your favorite podcast streaming services, so Spotify, Apple Music, etc. You can find us there. It's weekly, but we do have some breaks every now and again. Alrighty, so yeah, thank you to everyone who's new. Let's get into our content for today. We're talking about the ICF Core Competencies, and we're particularly looking at the first core competency, demonstrates ethical practice. For those regulars that have been around for quite some time, you will know about 2 years ago when the International Coach Federation, maybe longer actually, updated their ICF core competencies. They introduced demonstrates ethical practice as a core competency. Previously, it was, by the way, you have to be demonstrating ethical practice, but now it's actually introduced as a core competency, which back then I said was an excellent innovation, very important that we actually had it as one of the core competencies, not just an underlying principles. So just giving a little bit of that history there. So you can see there, for those of you that can see my slide, I've highlighted the 2 parts of demonstrate ethical practice that are our topic of conversation today. It's number 6, which is maintains a distinction between coaching, consulting, psychotherapy, and other support professions. And number 7 refers clients to other professionals as appropriate. Now, we did do a podcast a while ago, which was called the Instant Fail. So how do you instantly fail an ICF performance evaluation? So if you're doing a coaching demonstration in our Certificate in Workplace and Business Coaching, which is an ICF Level 1 program, or our Level 2 program, which is the diploma, if you're doing a coaching demonstration, and in particular, if it's your final performance evaluation, which signs you off as an ICF competent coach, or if you've done a coaching demonstration, which you're going to submit to the ICF as your final performance evaluation with its transcript, etc. If you don't maintain the distinction between coaching, consulting, psychotherapy, and other support services, that is an instant fail. Now, we have had a few clients who are doing our program who have said during the course of the actual coaching conversation, oh, you know what? I think this might be a good time to give you some mentoring. And we've gone, no, no, now's not the time to be doing mentoring. Now is the time to be fully demonstrating all of your coaching competencies. And so, unfortunately, in our terminology, that's called a resubmit. We're asking the person to resubmit. If you were to submit that for your International Coach Federation performance evaluation, that would be an instant fail. So you'd fail that examination. Now, Paula, you've just done the knowledge assessment. You can't tell us what the content is, but I'm imagining this demonstrates ethical practice is a strong part of it.
It is, and there was actually a number of questions, and I won't lie, I don't remember all the questions anymore, Natalie, so even if someone asked me, I wouldn't know what they were. But we do act in an ethical practice, and so I wouldn't give that information either, because that wouldn't be ethical. But there were a number of questions, as I recall, that were around the ethical practice that is about being clear and maintaining that distinction about what coaching is and it isn't, and when it leads into something else, and being able to identify that that's what's happening.
Yeah, great. Thank you for confirming that for us. So we've given you this simple diagram, which is basically simply saying that there's different approaches we can take in our workplace as leaders, as managers, as coaches. Everyone who's on the line, you're all experienced coaches, you know this. So directing, telling, problem solving, mentoring, advising, doing it all yourself. Whereas we want to move to that coaching approach of asking great questions, promoting awareness, building responsibility and accountability. So we offer this just as a simple diagram. But what I want to give you today is a more complex diagram, but it actually lays out these distinctions quite nicely. The reason why we're bringing up this topic, two reasons. One, we're exploring ethical practice. But the other thing, just last week when I was coaching, delivering a Leader as Coach program, someone put up their hand and said, look, I don't want to be a naysayer and I don't want to just be really negative, but you can't tell me you can coach everyone. So that can't coach everyone with the topic of our webinar. And so what we like to do when we think about it is true, you can't coach everyone. Not everyone's going to be coached. So we like to distinguish between what are we doing and when might we offer different support services. So this is a take on the traditional Blanchard model, but we changed it. And we're thinking, so the servant leadership, etc. models, we changed it because we wanted to think about our lens for when are we doing one thing, when are we doing other things, remembering that you only do coaching in your performance evaluations, in your coaching demonstration. But anyway, let's have a think about it, because it helps us respond to that person who says, well, you can't coach everyone. I'm not going to be coaching them. Half the time I've got to tell them what to do. And that's exactly what someone said in a workshop. And I go, well, let's have a really good think about it. And out comes the flip chart and out comes the model. So for those of you that can't see the diagram, we are talking about a person's skills and knowledge. Think about a 2x2 diagram. We're thinking about 2x2 matrix. We're thinking about the person's skills and knowledge. Have they got high skill and knowledge? Have they got low skill and knowledge? And across the bottom axis, you can pick this up on our blog, you've got the situation or the context that you actually find yourself in. And is it a normal everyday situation or is it an extreme or once-off situation? Now, for those of you that have done our Certificate 4 in Workplace and Business Coaching, you'll find this in Module 1 with a great description, but it's worth thinking about and just raising our attention to it once again. It might be a while since you've checked out Module 1 or Module 2. So let's talk about when we might do coaching. And it's pretty easy. If a person has got high skills and knowledge and it's a normal situation, then of course we're going to be coaching them. But interestingly, and for those of you, this came out of our work with the police force, if the person's got high skills and knowledge and it's an extreme or once-off situation, we're not going to come in and start telling a highly skilled person what to do. We're going to be asking great coaching questions. We're going to be finding out what's happened, what do I need to know, who, et cetera, et cetera. So we talked about this with the police force, with Victoria Police, and they said, yes, we're going to, even if we've got highly skilled people, we're going to be doing a lot of great coaching questions. But think about it, the coaching questions are going to be super direct. We're not mucking around. We're not all sitting around saying, all right, let's bring it in, everybody. What options have we got here? But we might say, right, what are the options? What are we thinking? I agree. Let's move. So these are not just like this bucket, 4 buckets. Think of it as a bit of an amoeba. In this area, when a person's skills and knowledge are moving from lower to high, and when the situation is moving from normal everyday through to more once-off urgent situations, we're going to be introducing coaching more frequently. And yes, people are saying they loved the graphics, so that's wonderful. You can pick it up on our blog. But what if it's an extreme situation? So if it's an extreme situation and you're working with people with lower skills and knowledge, then we're going to be telling them what to do. We're going to be directing and telling them. The coaching might come afterwards in the debrief, but not now. Now's not the time to be coaching. So there's a lot of opportunity for coaching. And it might depend on the person. Well, it does depend on the person you're working with their skills and knowledge and the situation that you find yourself in. We think that most scenarios that you find in the workplace, you could be coaching rather than directing and telling. But there will be those ones where you do have to direct and tell. And, I joke about this, in our leadership, in our Leader as Coach programs. I probably shouldn't, because I say, if there's an emergency and an evacuation and the fire brigade are called, then I'm going to expect someone to lead us out following the fire procedures, and I'll stay back and get rescued by the firemen. And I shouldn't joke about that, because I used to joke about it and we got 3 fire alarms in a row. So I don't joke about that anymore. But there'll be directing and telling, following processes and procedures, and then later the debrief of what happened, how can we make sure this never happens again, the more direct questions come into it. So then it brings up then, when are we doing the other things, training, mentoring, et cetera, and it's probably where the person has lower skills and knowledge and they don't know. So we work in highly technical environments, and I don't know what they do. You can ask me any coaching questions in the world and I'm not going to be able to respond. So you're going to need to tell me what to do, mentor me, etc. What we do find with rookie coaches, people that are new to coaching, is often they switch to mentoring, when truly, because they want to help, they want to give ideas, they want to problem solve, and we're purpose-built problem solvers. But really, we could be doing coaching rather than the mentoring. So the distinction is, if the person really doesn't know, then yes, we're going to be doing some mentoring. We might need to tell them what to do. We might need to direct them what to do. But as soon as they gain knowledge, that's where we can actually be coaching. Now, Paula, I'd be interested in your insights. We've got more to talk about, but be interested in your insights, because you've worked with hundreds of managers in your past life as in your senior HR roles, where they came to you and they wanted direction from you as to what to do. And you had to distinguish between, am I coaching this person or am I telling them because they don't know? And then what are they actually doing with their subordinates as well? So I wouldn't mind getting some insights from you on those kind of themes.
Yeah, I think particularly for someone, and I don't necessarily think I'm an expert, but in that subject matter expert, because that's the title we tend to be given, in that space, there are some times when you are the subject matter expert And so when I was coaching managers around specific people issues and legislative issues, those sorts of things, sometimes there is some knowledge that I might have that they don't actually have. But what I witnessed a lot was people who are subject matter experts at some point take over, and it goes from coaching to advising. And then it stays in advising. It doesn't actually come back. And what I tried to do was go, let's just talk about this, and let's talk about what that legislation is, or what some of the research is about it. But once you've done that, you then lead back into, so what does that mean for you? So how would you like to approach it? And you come back into it. But that was really only when it was literally something that I may have had knowledge about, that in that subject matter space. But what often happens is people start down that coaching space and then think, oh, well, I need to jump in because I know more, and then stay. And it's, how do you bring yourself back so that it's not doesn't continue in that mentoring space?
Yes, okay, I hear what you're saying there, Paula. So what you're saying is I could be a subject matter expert and the person doesn't have the knowledge and skills, so I need to share that. But you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, that people stay in that space. They don't, that once they've passed on their subject matter expertise and knowledge, they continue to do that, as opposed to coaching a person, finding out how they're learning, growing, developing their knowledge. Am I hearing you right there?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
Mm. It's great that you mentioned that, because Laura, I beg your pardon, has always also jumped in on the chat and said that the most important thing is to get clear in the agreement between the coach and the client. And yeah, absolutely. That is part of our ethical practice, that we're clear about what are we actually offering. Now, this is the case if we're a professional external coach and also an internal coach, a manager of coaches, or a manager who is coaching their people, so a leader who's coaching their people. So yes, getting clear with the people that our coachees about what we are actually doing, and in particular, if you're a professional coach, to make sure, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your jobs, but definitely from an ethical practice point of view, getting very clear about what it is that we are doing together. Because I get asked a lot of mentoring questions as well. I get asked my opinion and to give advice and what would I do. And that's where we're maintaining that distinction between our relationship as contracted as coach-client, not as mentor and strategic advisor, therapist or anything else. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So I suppose the other thing to think about is, here we've got normal everyday situations and we've got our extreme and our once-off situations. What we don't have on this graph, and I was thinking of updating it actually, is that overlay of when we might refer someone to other support services. So if this is not normal every day or your once-off kind of situations, if I'm thinking about the extreme situations, so that's probably the easiest one to think about right now. So if we're thinking about the extreme situations, we've done some directing, some telling, some coaching, some whatever it takes to get through that situation. Afterwards, we could use coaching as a debrief, but we know that people do sometimes experience some form of trauma after an extreme event. So that might be where we are actually offering support services. And of course, we've got employee assistance programs and other forms of counselling and therapy and the like to deal with post-traumatic stress syndrome or any of other things that might be happening there. So it might be that we are not doing coaching. We are actually referring to support services for those extreme workplace situations. But I'm also thinking here, and Paula, you're our mental health first aid trainer. I'm also thinking that, of course, as a manager and as a human being, I suppose, as a leader, there's a lot of great coaching questions we can ask that are actually checking in with the person to see if they are okay and to see what they're experiencing and to see if they need to talk about it. So it's kind of it's a mental health first aid space for me. But of course, we're going to be using good coaching questions there. I don't actually see, I don't see that we're coaching there. I think we're introducing mental health first aid services. But of course, we're asking good coaching questions. Could you just help us with the distinction there?
Yeah, I think it's when you can see that. So I sort of think of mental health as your brain is not functioning the way that you need it to function at that point in time, and it clouds lots of other things, and it changes the way you're feeling about yourself and the like. And whilst we can ask great coaching questions, there are other services that are actually in a better position to help that person through that moment or that time for them. So it's really thinking about those, and it's those questions that are or what other services have you reached out to? So organisations have employee assistance programs. Within Australia, we have mental health programs that you can get through your doctor. And it's when you can recognise that this scene is beyond just a normal coaching and it's impacting that person for a period of time, that might be where we're asking some questions about who else might be able to help you through this.
Yeah, I think it's a really good distinction. So it's the behavior is changing in the person. It's going on for a period of time. So what we're trying to say here is this is not normal every day. Something has changed significantly. The behavior is going on for a period of time. And it's that the person is not able to perform their duties as they did in the past as well. They're the three distinctions we make. Paula, am I right there?
Correct.
So the thing that we're talking about here is we're not going to be doing coaching. We're going to be offering our mental health first aid services to the person. In doing that, you're asking great questions, but I don't see it actually as coaching. And when we're offering advice around different services that are available, that is offering advice, offering ourselves as mental health practitioners as opposed to actual coaches. And we do know that coaches often or can get exposed to different things that the client shares with us. So that's where we might actually say, well, let's step out of the coaching right now and check in with you in terms of what support services you have, and then we can pick up the coaching. So I'm very clear that when I contract with a client, that I'm not a counsellor, I'm not a psychotherapist, I'm not a psychologist. So this is the role I'm going to play. And if you need those other support services, then we can talk about that as well. Paula, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it really, and it could be a conversation you have at the end as well. So the coaching session has finished, and a comment that says, "I've noticed over the last few sessions, or I've noticed in this month that things haven't been feeling right, or that you're sounding different, or that things are whatever it is that you've noticed," and and then talking about what other support services have you linked into. What might you be aware of? Where could you get some extra support from this perspective?
Yes, absolutely. And therefore, we are then making a referral if we're not trained, or we are very, very consciously thinking about how we're actually supporting the person. As we say, because it's not fitting onto this graph as a normal everyday situation or an extreme situation that we've dealt with. It's everything that's actually not on this graph that we're actually really thinking about. Thank you. There's a couple of really good comments coming through. Thanks, Brett. We always appreciate your input here. You offer that there's a difference between a formal coaching session and a coaching style conversation. You're right there, i.e. that a conversation that uses a coaching style questions draws out the individual. Yes, so we often talk about that. Am I just having a coaching conversation because that's what we're used to in the workplace, and that is a form of coaching. So we think about it, as you know, in the Certificate for Workplace and Business Coaching, this is the informal coaching that we're doing, calling coaching conversations in the workplace, versus I'm actually going to sit down and do a more formal coaching conversation. And you rightfully point out that sometimes it can be difficult to formally coach your employee because you might have an agenda yourself. So you've got to really think about that space, don't you, about how you're approaching that conversation. And of course, when it's more formal, then we'll sit down, we'll book the time, we'll have the coaching conversation in a more formal approach. And of course, you've got heaps of models and tools and techniques you can bring to that. So, yes, sometimes people go, well, am I coaching? Am I not coaching? Well, we're embedding coaching in everything we do in terms of our coaching conversations. For me, the distinction is I could be just asking questions. I'm not actually coaching the person. I'm just asking curious questions and being inquisitive as part of the way that we communicate. To me, where I switch into coaching is when I start asking, so what are the options? So what are we going to do? What's the action here? Who's going to do it? So I'm switching a little bit more down that line from informal into a more formal approach, because I'm now going, well, what are the options? Let's evaluate them. What approach can we take? Who's going to do it? What do we agree to? So we're using the O there and the W of the GROW model. And I've moved a couple of steps across, I think. That's the big distinction. If I'm just saying how you're going and what are you doing and what are you up to today and how's your weekend, all that kind of informal stuff, yes, that's a form of coaching, isn't it? Coaching conversations, but it's not. I'm not really coaching.
And I think, Natalie, the distinction too is that whenever I've been in a coaching session where I'm the subject matter expert, it hasn't been in a formal consulting coaching agreement. So it has been, I'm an in-house HR professional, as opposed to if someone engages me as a coach. Because as a coach, I would never jump in, I would never subject matter expert it. And in fact, someone asked me that question the other day, well, you're HR, what do you know? And I said, actually, this is all about what's going to work best for you. So we'll work through what your options are and how you would approach this. And I think that's the distinction too, is that if it's a formal, I'm engaged as a coach, I'm never going to step in that space. But when I'm coaching in an organization as a subject matter expert, there might be that point where I say, well, here's some information you don't know, but I will always return back to that coaching.
Yeah, that's great. And as we've talked about, that is what ethical practice in coaching looks like. So I appreciate that everyone has come on the line today to have a really good think about this, because as we talked about, it's not just about ticking the form and going, yep, we're doing it. We are actually together as a community, holding the mirror up and asking ourselves these questions about what our practice looks like and tightening it up, actually, if we need to. So great conversation for you to all join us in today. So we have our certificate for workplace and business coaching. We've got our diploma of leadership coaching, lots of other services we can provide you. A lot of the models we talked about are contained within our coaching programs as well. So we want to say to you all, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being part of the conversation and sharing and shining a light on ethical practice in coaching. We really do appreciate it. And we say to you all, enjoy your coaching.
And I'm just going to do a quick shout out